sexual reproduction, flower. Check the notes. Check your notes and tell me.
And self and cross pollination.
Double fertilization not over?
Self and cross. Differentiate.
So then, see that. So let us first study the concept of double fertilization.
And the chapter will get over today.
Yes. So now, when we talk about the concept of double fertilization, what was it? We had section of the flower we had drawn. Section of the flower we had drawn. What are the parts you are aware? What are the parts? The parts calyx, yes. Calyx, corolla, stamen, carpel. The parts you are aware. Today we are going to only talk about one method, how the flower forms the seed. Okay. So what is that method? That process, that method is known as double fertilization. So the other day you had studied parts of the flower. Today we are going to talk about that how in the pistil the process of fertilization would happen. How in the pistil the process of fertilization happens. So what is the name of the process? The name of the process is double fertilization. Let us write the definition of this process. This question, define double fertilization, explain the process, two major steps of double fertilization to write. Take that question and do that.
यार कौन सा कलर है? व्हाइट. हाँ इसलिए ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट नहीं है. अरे क्या दिख रहा है? साड़ी की बात कर रहा हूँ मैं. मैं तो कल मुझे तो लग रहा है ये भी करके आई है वो काम. साड़ी में क्या ये मतलब आज ये है. ड्रेस पहन दिए.
Okay. Now, to understand the process of double fertilization, we again will have to go back to the structure of the carpel. Let us look into the structure of the carpel. What are the parts we had studied? For the carpel, we had already studied. The parts are the ovary, the style, the stigma, and now we start talking about parts of the ovule. Did we talk about the male and the female gamete the other day? Did we talk about the male and the female gamete? Two male gametes and how many female gametes? Check.
1, 2, 3.
3.
Stick.
No, that means we haven't talked about the male and the female gametes. Okay, now let us continue from here. So we are talking about that this is the female part of the flower. What is the female part of the flower? Known as the female part of the carpel or the pistil. Carpel or the pistil consisting of the ovary, the style, the stigma. Now, to understand the process of double fertilization, we have to understand pollination is over and there is a pollen grain. What will happen to that pollen grain? So, understanding that first. What will happen to that pollen grain? So, I talk about the pollen. This is the pollen. This pollen will undergo the process of germination. This pollen undergoes the process of germination. In that process, the nucleus of the pollen divides into two nuclei. What are these nuclei known as? This is known as the generative nucleus. This is known as the generative nucleus. What about this? This is known as the vegetative nucleus. The generative nucleus and the vegetative nucleus. Then this pollen grain will divide further. The nucleus will divide further. By the time the pollen tube grows even longer, almost reaching the ovule. What is this tube known as? The tube is known as the pollen tube. What is this? This is the pollen tube. And now what about the nuclei? The generative nucleus divides into two more. And where is the vegetative nucleus? It remains later. So these two are known as the male gametes or the male nuclei. What about this vegetative nucleus? It remains as it is. So here I am talking about that the male gametes. How many male gametes? From one pollen grain, two male gametes we always come across. From one pollen grain, two male gametes. Now what in contrast with the ovule? Now this particular ovary has got chambers. Talking about the female gamete. So this was one that I talked about. This was one, the first. How the male gametes will be formed. How will the male gametes be formed? The male gametes will be formed by this method. How many? Two male gametes. Talk about the second, the female gametes. I want to understand. What about the ovule then? In case of the ovule, what will happen to the cell, the single cell, the ovule? This is the nucleus. The nucleus of the ovule, this particular nucleus of the ovule, one single nucleus of the ovule will undergo meiosis. It will undergo meiosis 2 times. As a result, this ovule will result in the formation of 8 nuclei, that is 8 female gametes. It will result in the formation of 8 nuclei. Let us try naming all of them. This is the egg cell followed by the synergids, the 2 polar nuclei, and then and then 2 polar nuclei and followed by the antipodals. What are their names? 8 female nuclei. What are their names? The ones which are at the top, what are these known as? These are known as antipodals. The 2 in the center, these are known as the polar nuclei. Then the big cell in the center, that is known as the egg cell. And the 2 here, these are known as synergids. So these names, first of all, to be very clear. So now that we are talking about the types of the male and the female gametes, which are how many male gametes? There are 2 male gametes. How many female gametes? There are 8 female gametes. Which are those? Antipodals at the top, 2 polar nuclei, 1 big egg cell, and the synergids. Now we try understanding that this 2 male gametes. Yes, keep your phone aside. What is there down? Move that side. Concentrate. I'm talking to you. I'm explaining this for you, not for my revision. No. So now that we are talking about this 2 male gametes, and the 8 female gametes, how the process of fertilization takes place. So that is what we have to understand. So talking about now, this is the ovule. This part is the ovule. So we are to understand in the ovule how many gametes and how they are arranged. So the same thing. I talk about 2 central gametes. What are these 2 central gametes known as? These 2 central gametes, polar nuclei. At the center, a big female gamete. What is this big female gamete known as the egg cell? Followed by 2 on the lateral sides, the synergids. And then 3 at the top. What are these known as? Antipodals. So these are the female gametes. Talking about the male gamete now, this is the method already we had come across. There will be a pollen tube forming. Inside the pollen tube, the two male gametes will be there. And this pollen tube or the pollen grain will keep on forming the pollen tube unless and until it reaches the end of the ovule. So the pollen tube will be constantly formed, long, absorbing the nutrients of the style and reaching the end of the ovule. What is this opening known as? This particular opening is known as the micropyle. Take a note of this word. What is this opening known as? The micropyle. What is micropyle? A small opening at the base of the ovule for the entry of the male gamete. So this pollen tube will always go and join the base of the ovule by a small opening. What is that opening? The micropyle. What is the function? Entry of the male gamete one after the other into the ovule. So this is the micropyle. If I now show you again here, which part is the micropyle? There's an opening in the ovule. If you can mark the ovule that I have drawn only till here. This is the ovule. This is the ultimate layer. This is the ovule. So I have drawn the ovule only this much. This is the ovule and there is a small opening at the base. Can you see now? This small opening is known as the micropyle. Then, now the steps. What are the steps of fertilization? The steps of fertilization will be like this. The first is the first male gamete. So where are the male and the female gametes? Here are the two male gametes and the female gametes here. The first male gamete, if I understand that these are the two male gametes there. Now, the first male gamete, how will it undergo the process of fertilization? This first male gamete will start moving towards the ovule. The first male gamete starts moving towards the ovule. So, this first male gamete, as it starts moving towards the ovule, it will definitely come in contact with the egg cell first. Because near the micropyle, it is the egg cell which is there. So the first step of double fertilization is, what is the name of this process? The name of this process is fertilization. What is the definition of fertilization? Fusion of one male gamete with one female gamete to form a zygote. So is it happening? Yes, I said that this is the first male gamete and this is the egg cell. So what is fertilization? Fertilization is fusion of the first male gamete and the egg cell. First male gamete and egg cell. And what does it give rise to? This gives rise to the zygote. What is the zygote? Yes.
Vegetative nucleus.
Vegetative nucleus. This one. Vegetative nucleus. So now the first step is fertilization. What is fertilization? The first male gamete comes and fuses with the egg cell. The moment is fused with the egg cell, then immediately they are going to form a single cell structure. What will that single cell structure be known as? That single cell structure will be now known as the zygote. But this single cell structure, the zygote, it is very much capable of division on its own because it has got now the full chromosome number, the diploid chromosome number. The other way, when I started talking about the concept of sexual reproduction, I told you what is the meaning of haploid, diploid cells. Haploid cells means a cell which has got just half chromosome number. Diploid cell means a cell which has got full chromosome number. So, this zygote is formed after fertilization, so definitely it is a diploid cell. But will this zygote remain as it is? No, this zygote will immediately start undergoing a process of cell division and resulting into a multicellular structure, something like this. And this multicellular structure is known as the embryo. This multicellular structure. Now, this zygote also, I will say, this zygote will not remain there. Rather, this zygote gets converted into a multicellular structure. Following? Following? Clear hai? So the first step was what? Fertilization, where the male gamete, one male gamete fused with the egg cell, resulted first of all in the formation of a zygote, but the zygote immediately transforms to form a multicellular structure. What is that multicellular structure called? This is now the embryo. But this embryo will receive nourishment. This embryo needs nourishment for repeated cell division. This embryo needs nourishment for repeated cell division, so it will actually obtain nourishment from the, what are these two female gametes known as? Synergids. So they will obtain nourishment from the synergids and become bigger and bigger. By that time, these two polar nuclei, they will fuse up. By the time the ovule, the embryo is growing in the ovule, the two polar nuclei fuse up, resulting in the formation of a cell and a single cell, and this single cell is known as the secondary nucleus. What is secondary nucleus? I mentioned just now. By the time the embryo is growing, obtaining the nourishment from the synergids, what happens? The two polar nuclei, they fuse. Now that the two polar nuclei fuse, forming one cell, this is called the secondary nucleus. But the fusion of the two polar nuclei is not fertilization, because it is both fusion of two female gametes, so that is not fertilization, of course. Then next is, this second male gamete is now in its way. The second male gamete now enters, and it goes and gets fused with the secondary nucleus. The second male gamete now goes and fuses with the secondary nucleus, resulting in the fusion of three cells. Yes or no? Two polar nuclei, one male gamete. This step is known as triple fusion. This is known as triple fusion. What is the meaning triple fusion? This is the fusion of two polar nuclei, fusion of two polar nuclei and one male gamete, resulting in the formation of what? Resulting in the formation of a single cell, and that single cell is known as the endosperm. So here we have endosperm, here we have embryo. So now this, what was the fusion about? One male gamete and two polar nuclei, also known as secondary nucleus. So I will say that now there is a single cell but made up of three nuclei together. One single cell made up of no. Class hours you are not, sir. No father, no mother. Now, when we are talking about this, one single cell, your father knows. No, this is the lecture time.
Yeah, actually,
Now, somebody is there no at home to receive the call and all. Then, now when we are talking about this secondary nucleus, the secondary nucleus will fuse with one more male gamete, resulting in the formation of a endosperm. So at this time, when the process of fertilization over, when the process of triple fusion over, what do we have in the ovule? One developing embryo and one endosperm. But now the question is, what will develop? There are two things. This endosperm also, very soon, this endosperm also will not remain as a single cell. This endosperm also will get converted into a multicellular structure, because endosperm and the zygote both are diploid cells. Though they are a single cell, but they are diploid, diploid. So this zygote was a diploid cell. I already mentioned the zygote is a diploid cell. What is the meaning? It has two half sets of chromosomes, from the female gamete also, from the male gamete also. Endosperm rather has three sets of chromosomes, from two polar nuclei and one male gamete, hence the process named triple fusion. But will it remain single cell? No, very soon that also gets converted into a multicellular structure. So at this time in the ovule, there is the embryo multicellular, there is the endosperm multicellular. Now the question is, what will develop further? Will the endosperm and the embryo both develop together? Or is it the only endosperm which will develop, or it is the embryo develop? That depends on what type of plants we are talking about. That depends on what type of plants we are talking about. If it is a dicot plant, what is the meaning of a dicot plant? A dicot plant which has got two cotyledons, like the pea, the gram, dicot. If it is a dicot plant, then it will be the embryo which will start developing further. If it is a monocot plant, something like the maize and the rice, if it is monocot, if the flower is of a monocot plant, then the endosperm will develop. So parallelly now, we have got the endosperm, and after that we have got this particular structure, that is the embryo. Now the question at this time is, what factor decides whether the embryo should be developing much further, occupying the entire ovule, or the endosperm should occupy the entire part of the ovule? That will depend whether the flower is of a dicot or of a monocot plant. So as per your syllabus, we are actually talking about the dicot condition because these are most prevalent, more commonly occurring plants. So we now try understanding that what will be the fate of this embryo. The fate of this embryo is it has to undergo repeated cell division. So what are the stages now? This embryo will now get converted into the seed. That is it. But how will it get converted into the seed? Many, many cycles of cell division. Occupy the entire space of the ovule. But for that, it will require enough amount of nourishment. From where does it get that nourishment? It will get the nourishment from utilizing the endosperm, utilizing the antipotence. So this entire embryo now occupies the entire space of the ovule and results in the formation of a multicellular structure like this. Results in the formation of a multicellular structure like this. Now we are not talking about this as an endosperm or as a embryo, but we are terming this as a seed now. What has happened in the ovule? That zygote, that embryo got converted by repeated cell division into an absolute multicellular structure full of nourishment known as the seed now. But then what about the rest of these parts? The rest of these parts, by the time they all have dried up, by the time they will all dry up, and this entire flower will almost take the shape of a fruit. The entire flower will almost take the shape of a fruit now. The ovary part will almost take the shape of a fruit. So I would say that which are the parts now? This is known as the outer covering of the fruit, known as the epicarp or the pericarp. These fleshy tissues which are between the ovule and the ovary wall, this is the edible part of the fruit known as the mesocarp. The outer covering of the seed known as the endocarp, and then we have got the seed inside. So talking about now the concept of triple fusion and fertilization, we now try understanding that this entire structure, what is this now? This entire structure is the fruit. How did that flower get transformed into the fruit? By a process known as double fertilization. Which are the stages? First was fertilization and the second was triple fusion. So this entire process where we are understanding that the flower gets transformed into fruit is double fertilization. Now these steps you have to remember to write. Steps you will be remembered. Now that I talk about this particular seed, what should happen to this seed? Now if it is a fruit and the fruit has given rise to the seed, and the seed now I talk about this seed is known to give rise to two tissues. Now that the seed is in the soil, I talk about the seed. Now that the seed is in the soil and it has given rise to two tissues, the tissue which is growing downwards, what is this tissue known as? This is known as the radicle. And the tissue which is growing upwards, what is this tissue known as? This tissue is known as the plumule. We have come across these words earlier, radicle, plumule. Then this radicle and plumule that we are talking about, we are just trying to understand that this seed, this particular seed, when it is in the soil, then what is its fate? This particular seed, when it is in the soil, provided it undergoes or provided it receives oxygen, moisture, and adequate temperature, if all these three conditions are available, then the seed will start growing into a new plant. What is this process known as? Germination. What is this process? This process is known as process of germination. What is germination leading to? Formation of a new plant. So then what is the definition of germination? You write the formation of a young plant or a seedling from a seed. Process of formation of a seedling. It is a seedling. It is not a very young plant. It is not a plant. We have not come across any plant parts yet. But it is a seedling, meaning it has already given rise to two tissues. So the radicle and the plumule. What is the definition? The process of formation of a seedling from a seed is known as germination. Seedling. Process of formation of a seedling from a seed, and the seedling will ultimately give rise to a young plant. This will give rise to a young plant. So this entire process that we are talking about, that is what is known as to a young plant. Process of formation of a, what happened? Process of formation of a seedling from a seed which will give rise to a new plant. That is what is germination. Clear? So you are asked a very specific question that, for example, person X has put some seeds in the soil, but the seeds did not give rise to any plant. In the first 6 months, he had observed, put adequate amount of the water and etc., but still the plants did not give rise to any, till the seeds did not give rise to any young plant. What must be the reason? The reason must be that the soil is dry, meaning the seeds must not have got adequate moisture, oxygen, or the temperature must not be suitable. So three things which are very much necessary for the process of germination. The soil should get adequate oxygen. The seeds should get adequate oxygen. Second, enough of moisture. And third, temperature should be adequate. What happens if the seeds are exposed very high temperature? They remain dormant. Dormant. What is the meaning of dormant? Inactive for a long time. The soil is absolutely dry. What will happen? The seeds also will dry out. So adequate water, oxygen and temperature very much necessary for germination. So there's a small paragraph in your textbook about germination, not too much to study there also, the details not there. There's a small paragraph on germination. Did you see that? So there you have to only study about some one or two factors, small simple activity may be asked. So that is what I just now discussed with you, talking about the oxygen and the water concept. So that much only. So this is about double fertilization, and with this we talk about the process of sexual reproduction in plants. Now the next part of the chapter that we are going to talk about would be sexual reproduction in animals, human as a representative. So sexual reproduction in animals, the moment I talk about that process, there also the word gametes, reproductive cells, diploid, haploid, the concept remains exactly the same. We are going to study now the human reproductive system, and there also remember these words, gametes. These are the key terms again to remember. What are diploid cells? What are haploid cells? So these concepts we have to come across. And then these are some keywords. the secondary sexual characters, since we are talking about human. In the plants, we did not talk about this. This is especially when we now talk about the human. Let us start understanding the reproductive system in the human and the method of reproduction. Talking about the reproductive system in the human, first of all, the male reproductive system. What are the parts, functions? The male system diagram, not, though it is there in the syllabus, but generally does not come because the diagram is a bit difficult for 10th standard children. But the female system diagram is comparatively easy that we will have to draw. For the male system, only the parts. We talk about the male reproductive system. The male reproductive system and certain concepts about the male reproductive system to know. What are the parts? Parts of the male reproductive system, a pair of testes. Talking about testes, we are going to now understand that what are the organs and their functions. Here, certain 2-3 questions you have to remember. Actually, the system you have to remember. We talk about the male system here, few important parts and the functions. Let us come across. Now see this male system that we are talking about, a pair of testes, the primary reproductive organ. From this testes, a tube-like structure goes up. Now where are these organs? These organs are away from the abdomen. Extra-abdominal, we are going to write an answer there. That's very important, comes in the exam. So this pair or this primary organs that we are talking about, I underline that word testes. Why? Because it is a main organ of the system. Now this pair of testes away from the abdomen, but connected to the upper region by the way of these tube-like structures. What are these tube-like structures known as? Vas deferens. Vas deferens of the right and the left side goes and merges almost from the body of the bladder to meet with the urethra. Urethra is a word already you are aware from the excretory system concept. Urethra, so the same thing there, urethra we have studied. So this vas deferens goes and meets, merges with the urethra. And then the entire urethral passage followed by the muscular structure known as the pelvis. So this is the main system, the 4 parts to remember. And the function. Majorly, we are studying about the testes. First of all, to know what are the parts. A pair of testes, a pair of vas deferens, check the spellings, a pair of vas deferens, the pronunciation and the spelling remember, a pair of vas deferens. Then third is a single urethra and the fourth is a single muscular pelvis region. Function we have to understand. What are the functions? Testes, certain features. Testes is something that you are to remember in detail. The first concepts about testes that we are talking about. Number 1, the testis is extra-abdominal. The testis is extra-abdominal. Now we have to understand what is the meaning of this word. Testis is extra-abdominal, meaning when I talk about the testis extra-abdominal, remember these words? Meaning testis is away from the abdomen and there's a great significance to this process. The testis is extra-abdominal, meaning away from the abdomen. But what is the need? So that it can maintain a temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade lesser than the body. What is the body temperature? 37 degrees. That temperature is not suitable for formation of sperms. So in the male body, the testis is away from the abdomen, that's why. So that the temperature in the testis can be little bit lower than the body temperature so that the process of formation of sperms can happen. So that is the first thing that I'm mentioning. The first feature, testis is extra-abdominal. The testis is covered by a muscular bag, and that muscular bag is known as the scrotal sac. Scrotal sac. What is scrotal sac? Now here, if I talk about this particular structure, the entire testis is actually covered by some muscular sac-like structures like this. Some muscular sac-like structure surrounding, Here the scrotal sac is not drawn, but just surrounding the testis. Just imagine we are talking about some muscular bag all over. That muscular bag inside which the testis is there, that muscular bag is known as the scrotal sac. The diagram that you have in your textbook, if you have the textbook with you, the labeling of some of the parts you should be very clear with. Is the scrotal sac shown in the diagram? Underline. In your book, in the diagram, mark the testis, mark the scrotal sac. So what is the scrotal sac? It is a muscular tube. What is the function of that muscular tube? The function of that muscular tube is to carry out the process of, you have to put the AC off on. AC is off. Temperature what you put there? Temperature 25 में रखा होगा है ना? अच्छा. Now, when we are talking about these two features covered by the scrotal sac, we'll again have to write a concept that why the testes need to be covered by the scrotal sac. Next, the third feature, let us just learn the features first. The testis is the primary organ of the reproductive system. So what are the major functions? Two major functions of the testis. What are the two major functions of the testis? Number one, production of the male gametes, formation of the male gametes. And what are the male gametes known as? The male gametes are known as the sperms. Second, secretion of male hormones. Secretion of the male hormones. And what are Droni? Get up. Secretion of the male hormones. That is, what are the male hormones known as? Estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone. So this names you'll have to remember, the estrogen and the progesterone. Huh?
Estrogen and
Both.
progesterone is in female, right?
Estrogen, but I'm talking about testes. Testosterone. I'm sorry. We talk about testosterone. Testosterone. So what am I talking about? These two functions, take a note. What are the two functions of the testis? Number one, formation of the male gamete, that is the sperms, and secretion of the male hormone. What are the male hormones? The testosterone and variety of other androgens are there. The testosterone, the primary hormone here. Now we go back to these concepts. Why is the testis extra-abdominal? What to write? Why is the testis extra-abdominal? What is the function of the scrotal sac? I just now said it's a muscular bag which will contract, relax from time to time and take the testis at times closer to the body. Now I said this scrotal sac which is surrounding the testis will take the testis closer to the body when the surrounding temperature is very low, so that the temperature of the testis does not fall beyond a particular temperature. Again, the scrotal sac will relax and take the testis little bit away from the body when the body heat is increasing or the surrounding temperature very high. Either of these two cases, when we are talking about the scrotal sac takes the testis away from the body when temperature surrounding very low, very high. So constantly there is a change. So let us first underline, let us first try answering one question then. Give reason. What is the significance? This type of questions read on. The testis is extra abdominal. Explain. Justify. So this type of questions. The testis is extra abdominal. Justify. Let us write an answer there. The testis is extra abdominal. Justify. Answer right. The testis is extra abdominal. That is, the testis is extra abdominal. That is, it is away from the abdomen. Away from the abdomen. To maintain a temperature. To maintain a temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade. To maintain a temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade lesser than the body temperature. To maintain a temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade lesser than the body temperature. For effective or efficient sperm formation. For effective sperm formation. So that is the answer for extra abdominal. Come to the next one. What is the significance of the scrotal sacs? What is the significance? Next question. What is the significance of the scrotal sacs? What is the significance of scrotal sacs? Answer. Scrotal sacs are muscular bag-like structures. Scrotal sacs are muscular bag-like structures. Muscular bag-like structures covering the testis. Covering the testis. Full stop. The scrotal sac contracts. Scrotal sac contracts and takes the testis towards the body. Takes the testis towards the body when the surrounding temperature, when surrounding temperature is very low. Surrounding temperature is very low. Full stop.
Towards the body.
When surrounding temperature is very low. Full stop. So that is one. The second, also the scrotal sac relaxes. Scrotal sac relaxes and takes the testis away from the body when the surrounding temperature is very high. When surrounding temperature is very high and body heat tends to rise. And body heat tends to rise. Last one more sentence you'll have to write. By these functions, the temperature of the testis is maintained. By these functions, temperature of the testis is maintained. By these functions, temperature of the testis is maintained to carry out efficient sperm formation. To carry out efficient sperm formation. So now we were talking about the testes. So what are some of the important points to remember? I said testes is extra-abdominal. Testis is covered by the scrotal sac. What is the significance of the scrotal sac to remember, right? Specifically, what are the major functions of the testis? Releasing the gametes, producing the hormone. But now that we are talking about the hormone, now this is a repeat of control coordination. If you all remember, the functions of the testosterone already we had studied. What are those functions? Functions of the testosterone we had already studied in that chapter, and that time I told you. Again in the chapter on reproduction we are going to come across the same thing. What are the functions of the testosterone? Number one was testosterone helps in developmental maturation of the reproductive organs in the male body. That is the first. Second is what? What was the second function? The second function is क्या था? Second function testosterone, development of secondary sexual characteristics in the males, and third क्या था? Formation of gametes. So because of this hormone also, because if a male body does not have adequate hormone, the gametes will also not be functional even if they are formed. So what are the three functions again? The three functions are the development. ये function same है with control coordination and now with reproductive system. Function is the same. The same function to remember: development and maturation of the reproductive organs. So this is the first function. Second, development of secondary sexual characters. What do we understand by secondary sexual characters? Secondary sexual characters would mean typical male characteristics like the mustache, like the beard, like the Adam's apple, like the wider shoulder, like the profuse body hair. These are the typical male-like characteristics. Development of secondary sexual character, another function of testosterone. And third is the effective formation of the male gamete. Effective formation of male gamete. तो ये तीन functions याद रखना है. Now we talk about the vast difference. Since we are talking about the male gamete, now certain features of the male gamete also to remember here. Talking about the male gamete, human male gamete, how would the male gamete look like and what are its features? One feature to remember that I talk about, that this human male gamete has got the nucleus. How many chromosomes in the nucleus of the male gamete? 23 chromosomes. If you remember the earlier times also, reproduction, the moment I started, I've been always talking about gametes, gonads, meiosis. If it is the gamete will contain how many cells, how many chromosomes? Just half of the body cells. How many chromosomes does our body cells possess?
22 plus 44.
We had done sex determination also.
No. 23 pairs, 46 chromosomes and one
So
pair
sex determination also we had done. Remember, also practice karo. 46. So gametes में उसके आधा होगा. That is 23. 46 always to remember now. Now we are almost finishing this topic. So the sperm. Features of the sperm. Remember, if I talk about that, this is the male gamete. One feature now to remember, male gamete is motile. It can move on its own. Now, not too many characteristics of the male gamete you have to understand, but since the next part we are going to study fertilization, so that's why this is important to know. What are some features of the male gamete now that we are talking about the male gamete? Male gamete is a small cell with 23 chromosomes and it can move on its own. What is that feature known as? Yes, it is motile, meaning it can move on its own. It can move on its own. Now the rest of the parts and their functions. What are the rest of the parts and their functions to remember? I talk about the function of the vas difference. Check the vas difference there. The vas difference is connecting the testis with the urethra, is it? Yes or no? The vas difference is connecting the testis with the urethra. Follow this diagram. The vas difference is connecting the testis with the urethra. The vas difference is actually at this region, connecting the testis with the urethra. So now that the vas difference is connecting the testis with the urethra, so function when you write, only this much to write. Transfers male gametes from testis to urethra. That is the function to write. Vas difference transfers male gametes. Transfers, what is the male gamete? Sperms. Transfers male gamete from where to where? Testis to urethra. So यही लिखना है function, only one function. Talk about the urethra. What to write? Function urethra. Urethra releases male gamete out from the body. Releases the sperms out from the male body. Out from the male body. Releases sperms out from the male body. This much only. Next is the penis. What is it? This is known as it is a muscular organ known as the copulatory organ. Matlab helps in the release of, it helps in the release of the male gamete into the female body for fertilization. Into the female body for fertilization. So now we are talking about the functions of each of these parts. Just एक ही function याद रखना है as per your syllabus. But this part you have to study in detail, the testis. So that's why I have talked about all these features. Vas difference, what is it? The tube connecting the testis, urethra. Urethra, what is it? That entire passage which will release the male gamete out from the body. And the penile region, what is it doing? It's a copulatory tube-like structure which will help in the insertion, release of the male gamete into the female body whenever we are talking about fertilization. Now, next is, if you see at this particular region, even in your diagram for the labeling, of course you get that diagram also. But when we are now talking about this part, see here, this entire male system, we also talk about that there are three other types of structures which are not the male system, but additionally are associated with the male system. What are those? Some accessory glands. What is the meaning of accessories? Something that we wear extra to maybe enhance our look or etc. Here also, to enhance the function of the male system, there are some more glands. What is it? Number one, seminal vesicles. Number two, prostate glands. Only these two you have in your syllabus. Seminal vesicles, prostate glands. Mark in the diagram that you have in your textbook. Seminal vesicles, prostate glands. So, usko kya bolenge? These are accessory glands of the male body. What are seminal vesicles and accessory glands? Or so what are seminal vesicles and when I talk about the seminal vesicles and the prostate glands, what are they also known as? They are also known as the accessory glands in the male body. कौन से हैं? Number one, the seminal vesicles. What does this seminal vesicles do? It releases an alkaline secretion. What is this alkaline secretion for? Providing nourishment to the sperms. What is the secretion meant for? providing nourishment to the sperms. We will talk about what is the reference of nourishment to the sperms. Next is the prostate glands. Now that we are talking about the prostate glands, now this prostate glands, check the location of the prostate glands. What are you to write? At the junction of the bladder and the urethra. It is actually at the junction of the bladder and the urethra. Can you see there? Now, this prostate glands that we are talking about, they also produce an alkaline secretion. But when you write in your exam only this much, you will not get marked for this because sare glands alkaline secretion he produce kar rahe hai, but then their functions are all different. So, what is the function of the prostate glands? They produce alkaline secretion to neutralize the acidity of the female reproductive tract. Neutralize acidity of the female reproductive tract. Okay. Now, after the break, again little bit with this, we will continue. Now try to look into the female system. For that, you have to draw one diagram. All of you have pencils with you?
Yes.
Boys, you have pencils with you?
Yes.
Go and wash your face.
अरे मेरी फट गई भाई बुक नीचे गिर गया मैं कभी बोलेगी मैं तो बोलेगी ऐसा मैं हिल गया था मेरा अबे कोई तो जाम कर
Hello, very good. Are you कैसे खा लेती क्लास में? मैंने पूछा खा लेती अर्जेंट बोले नहीं क्लास में